Hello and welcome to the Path to New Earth Freedom Dream Life podcast. Today I'm meeting with a beautiful starseed elder goddess. Her name is Luminessa, and she'll be talking to you a little bit about her path and her purpose. In this podcast, we will be covering lots of beautiful topics. Today, one of the topics that's really close to my heart is the sacred union within self and also sacred sexuality. And so I'd love to set our intention to start the podcast today with taking a moment with our intention setting with water. So go ahead and grab your water and we'll just bring it close to our heart. Take a deep breath in and just set your intentions for your day, for your highest good, whatever you'd like to set into your water. Take a deep breath in. Release it out. And let's go ahead and take a drink. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Luminessa Enjara. We'd love for you to greet everybody and just say hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to be here.
Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're on, and we're really glad this time worked out. And we are looking forward to our podcast today. So I'm going to share a little bit about Luminessa and her bio. I'm going to read that to you today. So you'll learn a little bit more about what she offers. And then we also have a free gift here at the end. So stay on for the end of the podcast. We have two really wonderful gifts. So Luminessa is coming to you today with her passion and her mission, which are devoted to supporting the rise of a new paradigm in women's sexuality. This work centers on reclaiming sacred sexuality as a natural, powerful, and healing expression of feminine energy. Through her Lineage programs and Priestess training, she guides women in releasing old patriarchal beliefs about their bodies, femininity, and sexuality. She supports women in reconnecting with their authentic sexual power, sovereignty, and fully embodying their living goddess nature. Her overall mission is to reclaim the paradigm of sacred sexuality for all in the collective field. So powerful. Yes, well, let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, it's changed it has been changing greatly over the last several years, but I was given you could say I had a mystical experience way back, maybe before you were born. I don't know. This one probably not. Maybe when you were born. Anyway, it's in the 80s. And anyways, I've done a lot of work on myself. I had done a lot of spiritual work way before then. Back in the 70s, after I graduated college and things, I began the work, what we call self-growth work. It was at the beginning of the day where we had everything was just taking off. You know, there was so much going on in the world. And I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area after college because I had done this 3-month training called Living Love. And it was the Living Love Center with Ken Kais. It was a whole book merging Eastern and Western philosophy together. And I got into this program and it changed my life. It helped me to love myself. So that was the first step I took. I really learned that I wasn't loving myself very much. In fact, that I was very shut down. So out of that came a whole other opportunity for me to step into my spiritual awakening. And I found through the autobiography of a yogi, my true teacher, which everybody has found. I mean, that book must have awakened so many people. But I found Babaji. Babaji is my true master teacher. And through Babaji, I was led truly to my core spiritual teaching, which was called the teaching of the inner Christ, which was metaphysical, spiritual, new thought, mysticism, channeling, everything, and worked directly with Babaji, worked with all the ascended masters. And for 13 years, I trained. I became a minister, teacher of our Bay Area group. I was very involved, and it changed my life and set the foundation for my spiritual work. And to this very day, I use it all the time. It helped me to connect with my I am presence, to talk with aspects of myself. So I was one of those pioneers who was doing channeling before Shirley MacLaine came on and made it, the I guess you could say, very contemporary. So that led me, after 13 years of doing this work, which I thought I'd be doing forever in terms of a career. I was a minister, I was a spiritual guide and counselor. I did all of this. I eventually got into the goddess work because it was the 80s it was the second wave of the women's lib movement. And I was
Yes.
living in Berkeley. And
Wow.
I was
You're right in the heart of
women.
it.
Yes. And I was living in the heyday when all the bookstores were still there. And I had an epiphany reading actually Lynn Andrews' book, which is called
Yes.
Medicine Woman.
I love her book.
I read all her books. There were Carlos Castaneda for women. You know, she was the woman who did all of these amazing stories about her awakening to her spiritual path in an indigenous way. And for me, it helped me to see that my work was with women. So I truly didn't know that until that moment. But then the story goes on. So after that, I studied everything I could for the goddess, everything that was available at that time, which was about 8 books. I studied women. They were writing them, Maria and Gambudas, Carol Christ, all the women were writing books. When women were God, everything was blasting open in those days, but there was a very small group, Wicca, everything. So then I got immersed and became a teacher by reading my books and doing homework and studying. I said, I could teach this. I know more than they know. So I went out and gave workshops for women.
Okay.
The goddess just did it, you know?
Yes.
And it led me to the awakening that I guess I'd been waiting for, which was one evening in my bathtub. It's on my website if you care to read more about it. I'll encapsulate this. It was a mystical experience. Now remember, I am a mystic, so I'm used to it in some ways, right? It was not totally weird. It was just weird the way it came through. I'm in my bathtub and I used to take baths every night, and I used to, candles and music and the whole priestess sort of, you left this thing. And I would bring in all this channeled information in my bathtub.
Yes.
That's why I got these downloads. And I'm sitting in my bathtub one night and I'm looking at a candle in the corner of the bathtub, and literally I see a flame and I see myself dancing. And I'm in a temple. And I look at this and I blink my eyes. I went, I've never seen this before. Who the heck is that? And in comes the voice of Anjara, priestess of the flame. And then I get this download that is me. I am me. We're the same from this life in the temples of Isis. That I was this priestess of the flame named Anjara. And she said, I have a message for you. Well, of course, I said, okay, I'm open. So the message didn't quite come through that night. We ended this whole thing, and literally, synchronistically, you will not, how synchronicities work. 3 days later, literally, in the same week, I had scheduled months in advance channeling with a woman who channeled Sri Yukteswar, which is a lineage of Yogananda. It's one of the yogis, Christ yogis, and she was this woman that traveled doing these sessions, and I waited 2 months to meet with this woman to get this channeling. I walk into her space, I sit down literally, and she's on this dais, and she closes her eyes and she says, there are 5 Egyptian priestesses in this room, and one is named Anjara, and she wants to talk to you.
Yes.
And I went, you're kidding me. It's like, what? So she gives me a message and she says, I'm a lineage holder for a priestess lineage called the Priestess of the Flame.
Yes.
Did I want to accept the lineage to bring it to modern woman? And I didn't even know what it was, literally, had not a clue. I went, yes. It was like not even a thought, not a second moment. The minute I said yes, my heart exploded into ecstatic bliss. I was in joy. I didn't even know why I was in joy. And that's how it began. So that's my mystical story and how it all began. And from that point on, it was like, what the heck am I doing? I had no idea what it meant to be a priestess of the flame. I did repeat this whole thing with the bath a couple of days later. And I asked Anjara, I said, Anjara, tell me, what does it mean? And what am I supposed to do? She said, it'll all be revealed. But she did tell me I was going to have a priestess training school. And I laughed. I really laughed. I'm a sacred dancer. I was doing all kinds of other things. I was not doing priestess training. This had not even occurred to me. I didn't even know what that was. So years and years and years go by. As we know, when we get a download, when we get a training, when we get anything from the divine, it's not our time. It's God's time. It's really not. There's no time in that. And things become clearer as time goes on, and you go through your growth, your changes, your things. And so my work was always with sexuality as it moved on. Now, originally, I did not know this. I did not come in knowing that I was going to teach any of this, but I was interested. I was always one of those women that I would call, I was a priestess of Aphrodite.
Yeah.
And by studying the goddesses, by understanding more about them from the archetypal places, I began to understand me more. And I began to also understand patriarchal values and how the whole thing came in. Riane Eisler, who is a profound, wrote a major best-selling book back in the day in the 80s. And she still, and her husband started many other things, but that was one of the first books. It was called The Chalice and the Blade. I highly recommend that every woman read this book. It really, really changed my life and helped me to understand what happened to create some of the reasons that male-dominated world came into power and came into being over hundreds of years. It took hundreds of years. So my work got very involved with all of that. And I began to look at sexuality, and I began to study Tantra. I began to learn about that. And that also changed my life, because prior to that, I saw sex in my 20s. Now, remember, this is the disco age in the 70s. And I'm a dancer. So I was out disco we were in San Francisco twice a week, dancing our little booties off. I was picking up men. You think that everybody, we have hookups back then, just like you have hookups today. No different for any generation. But none of that was about my, I didn't know anything about my body. I didn't know anything about orgasms, really. I knew nothing, because the books have just been written. Our Bodies, Ourselves was the tantamount book for women to read about. Women's liberation and consciousness raising, all of that is the time I was involved with. So I, even through just before Tantra, I had these relationships with men where my heart was shut and I was terrified. I was sexual abused, so I didn't know all of that back then. So I didn't trust men at all. And sex, I was good at. I knew how to do that. That was my lineage. I knew how to be, and like I say, a fool for Aphrodite. I knew how to play that role. So I would play that role. And as a result of all of this, I give you this because it's so significant to know where you get these backgrounds, what makes that person come into that work. I changed with Tantra. I began to open the heart. With Tantra, I connected heart and sex. With Tantra, I began to look at another person, strangers. A strange man sat before me, and I'd look into their eye, and we would do eye gazing, and I would melt out of the persona, and I would become the beloved, and I could start owning the beloved and seeing the beloved, and my heart opened, and many things transformed through sacred sexuality for me. And I studied it for many years with a group, because I was part of an organization. I was actually working for the woman, helping to set up her workshop, so that I kind of went in that way. But for me, it was also a personal shift. I learned all about my body. I learned about honoring. I learned about the god and the goddess, and the way we do in Neo-Tantra movement, which is what it was called, the Neo-Tantra movement. Sex was, it wasn't just about orgasm. It was also about looking at the beloved and elevating it to, we have where we are in devotional love. There's devotion to a partner. And then there's also just sex for the sake of sensuality. But when you combine the both and you use sacred technology, like our bodies, and sex is a science. Sex is an art form. Sexuality, making love, awakening the body, and being in a devotional place elevates it all to a very high degree. And also it helps you to wake up. It helps you to wake up because you're raising your Kundalini energy. So all of these things help me to eventually come into really teaching women sexuality. I worked with men too, and couples. But I really vibrated more with women's sexuality and gave workshops helping women to really clear the shame, and also to learn how to have sisterhood, connections with women. Because in a culture that's steeped in patriarchal values, women were always put against each other, competing with each other, betraying each other, all for the love of a man. It was always about chasing a man, in those days. It really was. And it was so inculcated in our mind in our being. We were brought up generation after generation. My own mother told me never to trust my best friend. She said, your best friend will take your man. This is what I was grown up with. And the truth was that because I believed it, that's what happened.
Yeah. You created the reality because it was put into your psyche.
Exactly. So here I am trying to look at this from a whole new perspective of, and in our Tantra community that we created, women loved women. We were really loving each other. We trusted each other. We danced together. We were the Shaktis. You know, we really owned the Shakti, juicy energy. The men worshipped us. It was more the opposite. It was like, oh my God, look at this goddess who's before us.
As it should be. As it should be.
It should be. And what I learned as a role for women in sex is that it's our role as women to connect men's hearts with their, as we say, their lingams or genitals. It's our divine role. And one of the things I teach is about the sexual initiatress. She's a major archetype. The sexual initiatress. We have lost connection with this part of ourselves, who is the wise. She's the educator. She's the tantrika. She's the Shakti. But she does it in such an artful way. She is the woman who, in the days of the goddess and the temple priestesses, and my role as Anjara was, you know, we have what we call the sacred temple dancers, and we have the sacred prostitutes, and we have the courtesans, with all these names for women who master the art of sexuality and use it in a way. Now, I won't go into all of that. There's so much history, and I teach all of that myself, the history of the sacred prostitute, the history of what these really meant, what these women really did. But my lineage, which was given to me back in that bathtub, was called the Priestess of the Flame. And that lineage was, it was like, today I offered like a graduate program. There's a part A and a part B, but basically we're learning to reclaim those archetypes. And I have the archetypes that I work with, that I came up with for me, were the goddess of love and beauty, which is, one of them is Aphrodite.
Right.
And there are many names for the goddess of love and beauty throughout many cultures. There is also the primal goddess. And the primal is our Shakti. It's our raw, feminine, primal urges. It's wild nature. It's the untamed feminine that all men are terrified of.
Yes. The power of the Shakti is everything. It's creation itself.
It is creation. And in woman, it's our untamed nature. It's our wildness. It's what male, unquote, patriarchal energetics are terrified of in nature. As in woman, right? Because we parallel that, which is nature. So there's that archetype aspect, and the sexual initiatress. And within that is the sexual healer, and also the sacred courtesan, who is more modern day. So all of these aspects are what I include, and I have, through my own self-growth, my own work, my own dedication through life, embody all of them. I have learned that what we can as a woman, and what I offer and what we do, and just sharing that I think this is for all women everywhere, truly I do, if you identify as a woman, is to really own these archetypes of ourselves so that we can play interchangeably between them. That we're Aphrodite tonight, we're the Shakti one night, you know, we're the primal energy. Maybe when you go to work, you come more forward as primal. You're passionate. You're guided by your passions. You rule and you take the lead. And maybe, you know, as goddess of love and beauty, you just dress splendidly because you're elegant and because you put forth an aura or an energy that emanates beauty and art and grace and joy and sensuality, different aspects that we embody all these archetypes, and we can learn how to master them, integrate them, play with them, that they don't run us, reach them. We don't let them, we're not always, you know, in our culture, and you can please at any point, you know, our culture only shows one or two archetypes.
Right. And they're the shadow side, almost always the shadow side of the goddess.
They are.
When we're in our true power, it is intimidating to the patriarchy who's ruled. And so every time that the sexuality for a woman since the beginning of the Christian era has been shown is that when she's in her power, even since the beginning of time with Adam and Eve, the first woman, Lilith,
Yes,
stepping into her power.
you said it. Wait a minute. You're a woman after my own heart. All right, go ahead. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So we go all the way back to the very, very, very beginning. And that woman, Lilith, it was not the first woman. If you're watching this podcast and this is news to you, we have a lot to teach you.
You do. And you're the first woman who's ever said that other than myself, because my lineage comes from Lilith, the two teachings of Lilith, who was actually in the temples of Inanna. The lineage I come from is the temples of Inanna, where it was called the daughters of Inanna, and they were the first sexual healers, and they followed Lilith. Yes. And Lilith this is how I differentiate her, how she came. I have a book on her, by the way, that she channeled through me, an ebook.
Oh, what is it
called? Lilith. I'll have to send it to you. It's called Lilith, the First Woman, the True Story.
Yes. And is it available online also for people to purchase?
Yeah. Yes. And it's on. Well, yes, it can. It's not on my website. I have a different thing, but yes, it's part of my program that I can offer. Okay. So this Lilith, as you mentioned, thank you so much for saying her. She's so happy, because so very few women understand that they only show the dark side of Lilith. They don't show, she was never an incubus.
She was never a snake.
Never any. That was all patriarchal shifting and changing to control her. She was the first sovereign woman. She was the mother of humanity. She was the seed. She gave birth to Adam. They were co-creators together.
Yes, co-creators, equals.
They were equals. They were always equals. And Lilith was the sovereign whole woman of her sexual energy. This is what women have to give. This is why I think, and I know you agree, is that when sex is debased, when sex is inverted by the dark, when it's twisted, and it was, and it has been over thousands of years. And today we see sex is just so twisted, and it's so not the truth of what real
the media just is so distorted.
It's so distorted. I say it's the dismembered soul of the feminine. It's the sexual dismembered energy that's all around. And part of my mission was given to me to reclaim and help women reconnect with this dismembered part and the shame that came with our sexuality through making up a story that Lilith left to copulate with the demons, when in truth, she never did any of that. She just was a woman in her sexual tower who said no to Adam.
She did. She said she refused to lie beneath him because she was equal. And when he demanded her to be subservient, she said no.
And then they created Eve.
And then Eve came out.
She's a subservient woman who went, I'm from his rib. I will serve him, when it's no equality there. And it was all written. This is Genesis all rewritten.
Exactly. This
by
is the truth.
By the patriarchal leaders, the political leaders. It was all about control. It had nothing to do with anything else, just control. So thank you for even mentioning that.
Absolutely. I mean, she's channeling through us right now for these messages to get out. And as both of us, as channels for the divine feminine, she's like, oh, you're going to talk about me? You're going to talk about me, let's get down to the truth, and we're going way back to the very beginning of time when humanity began on this earth. And from that very moment, once she refused to lie beneath him and be subservient to the masculine, she stood in her power. And then the distortion began.
And the distortion began.
The sexuality, they started to wear fig leaves. They became embarrassed of their bodies. This is this truth of Genesis, but this has all been written out of the Christian Bible, because when the patriarchy took over the Bible, then they took out all of the power, and even all the way down to Mary Magdalene, calling her a whore and a slut, and all of these very
derogatory terms that have nothing to do with what those words really mean. I teach what the words, if you look at all words, they all have a different meaning when they originate. And the word whore doesn't mean whore. The word I even have an article called, reclaiming the word whore, like retaking that back. It actually means sacred one, Christed one, knowledge, woman of knowledge, woman of wisdom. These are words that we learn, so we can see also, as we know, there is even another force beyond the patriarch who owned them. So we're not going to go into all of that, but
yeah, but it's a bigger picture.
Is the big story, the big picture is huge. It's beyond anything you could even imagine. But given that we're players here on this beautiful Mother Earth planet, we as women, as you, and what you're doing, what I'm doing, is just to further the truth, to reclaim sacred sexuality. Sex is sacred by its divine nature.
Absolutely.
And our bodies as women is sacred by divine nature. You are a living goddess. I am a living goddess. It's our birthright. Period.
It is. Period.
Period. We are that. And Lilith represented when she's part of my inner self. When I have Lilith, I call her Lilith, the first woman. That's how I identify her energy.
Yes.
I feel this sense of such strength, such power. She's like beauty, but the strong. She's the primal goddess. She is very primal.
She is the primal energy. She is life force energy herself.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's happy that you brought her up. I wasn't even going to think of it, but thank you so much.
I'm happy to work with her too. And she also works in our astrology as an asteroid.
I know.
That's so very powerful. If you haven't ever looked up Lilith in your chart, I highly suggest those of you who study astrology to look her up and see where she lands in your chart, because that's where she was placed when you were born. And she is a very alive energy, as all of our greater bodies are in this cosmos. They are all conscious beings. I would like to circle back to the fact that you were in the water when these downloads came.
Yes.
And I was so very deeply with the water. And this is something that has just, the downloads that have come in, I'm going to just tell a little backstory just for you and some of the audience that may be new here catching this podcast. So I have worked with the goddess in her divine form since I started working with Krishnamacharya's lineage in yoga back in 2008, 2009, 10, 11, when I was really, really deeply studying my 200 hour, my 500 hour, the very beginning of my yoga teacher training in this lifetime. But I was also remembering through sacred plant ceremony many, many times when I was a man and a yogi and I was in the temples. And I would go back to those moments where only the men were allowed to have these studies and have these teachings. And then I also remembered through the plants, through the teachers, a time where I was a woman sitting in it was a very small council, maybe 4, and I was the only woman. But yet, since I was doing the teachings and doing the studies and doing the work and living the life of the yogi, I was allowed, which was a very rare exception back thousands of years ago. And this is when the patriarchy started. It was delineating the masculine role and the feminine role, even through yoga, which means to unite, to yoke together. And it was already delineated way back then. And then it just continued to exacerbate through all of the history. And so when I started working with her story and working with just Shakti energy, Shakti came to me. Shakti is who we are. I mean, she's already there, but she was very clear that she wanted me to take these linear teachings that were rote and they were masculinated and they were not made in the way that Shakti wanted to move, which was in the spiral. You know, she wanted to flow and move, and she didn't want warrior 1, warrior 2, this linear militant style of yoga. But so when I learned the ancient lineage through Krishnamacharya, I also learned of Indra Devi. And she came to the West, and she is the one that brought the yoga to the West. She actually carried the sacred flame across the Atlantic with a cigarette. That's back in the days you could smoke on the plane. And she took the sacred fire from the holy temple, brought it across the ocean, and continued to chain smoke across the ocean until she could relight the flame on the western freaking shore. And that is the woman who brought that power, that flame.
That's amazing. And it's funny that we talk about the flame. You know, that I never quite understood in the beginning of all of this, when it was the priestess of the flame. I mean, the flame can mean many different things. Shakti, Kundalini, it can mean many things. But recently, within the last year, I actually recognized the lineage. So I found it's a true lineage. It's a 6,000-year-old lineage. Now, this came a couple of By the way, I'll tell you about this book, which you would love, I think. So when I found my name, I knew I had this lineage, but I didn't know anything about it. Okay. I didn't even know if it was real. I mean, I thought it was, who knows? So several years ago, I actually came across a book on Amazon called Lilith, Keepers of the Flame. And when I saw that title, I literally had shivers. I broke into tears. My heart went pitter patter. And I went, that's my lineage. That's my lineage. So what ended up happening is I bought the book. Minute I opened it up, it was all about Lilith and the true story of her as the archetype for the new woman. She is the new feminine rising, which is what my school is called. The new feminine rising is the new energy of the divine. We all ascend. The feminine ascends too. The masculine ascends. We ascend that new frequency. The divine feminine of the old day was desecrated, infiltrated. So even though we have many things that were still true, a lot of it was distorted, as you said.
Absolutely.
So the new feminine is about the purity, reclaiming the purity of the original teachings of the divine feminine and the innocence that recalls back to us, our innocent nature, the innocence of the purity of the feminine.
Exactly. And the way that I've found it to come in, and you can tell me if you've found other ways, is strictly through channeling, because the written history is written in his story and it's lacking her story. And so this is how it's coming in, is actually through downloads and information straight from source without distortion.
Yes. And so this whole falsity, as we see, around us, is all falling apart. Everything has to fall apart in order for the new to take root. And what I noticed, we were saying about water and bringing all that through in water and in the bathtub, because water is a place where I was able to really open up and relax. And baths for me were very, it was sacred. It was like a sacred temple. It obviously triggered something in my memory. So this whole thing, this book, Lilith, Keepers of the Flame, when it came in, it actually validated that it was a 6,000-year-old lineage that I had been given. Wow. And the word flame, priestess of the flame, was the flame. There are two things. First is the priestesses of the dove, which are Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and there are three others that I don't know by name, who are from the Seven Sisters Pleiades. I'm a Pleiadian.
Okay, so I'm going to fill this in for you, because the lineage that has come to me is Isis, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, the Divine Mother, Kuan Yin.
And so I connected.
Of course, the Pleiadians.
And I'm Pleiadian because I am Pleiadian. It's one of the major galactic life that I hold. I have a galactic self called Alara. She's my Pleiadian slight bodied self, but I have a brother and sister on the Pleiades, just to bring that in, because I know that you resonate with the galactic aspect, the star families. Athena and Thor are my sister and brother on the Pleiades. I love those names. I just love those names.
My dog is like Athena. She is my right hand shadow and my ride or die.
Right. So it's just that. So this flame is a very ancient lineage for the priestess lineage. But the flame is also, as we were talking about, the Shakti, Kundalini, the reconnection with our life force, our primal energy. But, it's the reigniting, I think. When I think about that word flame, I think it's what holds within the womb, and the sacred sexual healers is the divine human blueprint. All women hold the blueprint within their sacred portal. That's one of the pieces I do teach, is I help women to reconnect with the sacred portal. And I work with Anastara. Anastara Maka, if you may know of her, she and I work together, and we do these sacred portal workshops, trainings, once or twice a year. And I've been doing yoni work forever. So I call them like the yoni pujas.
Yes.
Where we reconnect with their sacred portal, with this is the birthplace of the flame. This is the divine blueprint of all divine humans. We're coming to this now in our day and age, right? Right now, we're at the
Right.
precipice.
In the Age of Aquarius, here we are.
Yes. So all of this is so brilliant. You know, all of this works together, and we're at this most important time right now. It's the only time in the entire world history, forever time, that ascension is happening where we embody.
Embodiment. This is the key. This is the key. That is the key. And this is what I've been teaching. I rewrote some of my old yoga teachings, which was the journey through the chakras, to be the embodied journey. Because if we are not embodied it, if we're not embodying it, we're not doing our mission. We are here in a body to bring these teachings to this planet for our legacy and for those that come. And also it shifts it in the quantum field for all those that have come before. So once we bring this information through and embody it, the embodiment is the key. We can't just speak it with our mouth or write it with our hand or read it with our mind. We have to fully embody these teachings. And that is the huge thing that a lot of people just really don't remember to do, or they don't really have that remembrance yet, I should say. They think they're just checking off the box. I went to yoga class. Oh, I did a meditation, and they're just kind of checking it off and going through their day without fully really living it.
But that's because, the timing, it's been building, and now we are actually in the Aquarian age. But the truth is that there are many people on this planet who weren't, through a lot of other reasons, who've had a lot of hardships and struggles, and we've had a lot of, I think where it stands now is like there's 60% of the population of the 8 billion or whatever billions of people here are starseed and or people who are moving forward into a new transformation, and 40% aren't even human.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, this is recent, but
that makes sense, because we are definitely we're past that tipping point.
We're past the tipping point. So those of us who are hearing this podcast, if you resonate with it, those of you who are tuning into this and say, maybe, the embodiment is that in the old Christos, you have to understand that Christianity, the old, was distorted. Jesus' teachings were never taught. He was a Nazarene. He was always teaching love. Mary Magdalene was his actually twin soul, as all ascended masters have twin souls that they work with. Portia and Saint Germain, Jesus and Mary Magdalene, they all do. So it's always a balance.
And the priest and priestess. It is the divine union.
That's right. It's balanced energy within us, the sacred marriage of our own masculine and feminine together. So we're now coming into this time where this is going to be more of a norm, where we begin to have this life. It's the embodied Christ energy. We are that. That's who we are. But as you said, it's awakening to that. It's not like in the old day or in the Piscean age. It was about going outside of yourself, going to church, giving your power over to somebody else.
Even the medical field, if I may interject, the lab coat, my story is written. I just have to do this and this and this because that's what they told me at the medical, So this is all external forces making the decisions for you versus bringing it inside and embodying that wisdom and then choosing your highest timeline.
And and trusting yourself and anchoring that timeline. And that's the great word. That word's been used a lot. I've written articles on the bifurcation and the timeline, but may I say, and I know that you can contribute, we are coming into the most important portal ever that has only happened once every couple of whenever years, like 18 something was the last time it happened, coming up on the 17th, starting even now. It's called the bifurcation of timelines, really cementing into. So this is a choice time for all people to choose where you put your attention.
Are you speaking of the ending of the Chinese New Year and the beginning of the Chinese New Year?
Yes, the horse, The fire horse really establishes on the 17th. And as we all know, those of us who are even, I'm sure if you don't know, we've been going through a letting go of the old paradigm, a letting go, a shedding of the skin of the snake. So I'm a wood snake, by the way.
Oh, you are a wood snake.
And this was a wood snake year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And I'm a 9 lifeline.
Oh,
I'm a 9 lifeline. So I had double whammies all year.
Yeah.
Letting go, completion, letting go, completion, letting go, completion. And letting go even up until the 17th, this last tail of the threads of the old paradigm, letting go of the way you see yourself, the way you act, to be, everything, that letting go of the feminine, the way we have seen the way we may act as a woman. So the work I'm bringing in is about redefining ourselves. What's that new feminine rising all about? And I'm going to invite you to be on my podcast so that you can share your story about your idea. What's the new feminine for you? You know, what does that mean? How do we be? What do we walk like? For me, it's the living goddess. And that's the principle I'm teaching. You know, when I was in Tantra back in the 70s and the 80s, mostly the 80s, goddess was new, but it got a little overdone after a while. You know, it was a little bit overdone. You know, the goddesses that we were, you know, we wore the bindis in the middle of the forehead, and we dressed up in goddess garb, and, you know, we danced, we had ceremony, we wore saris and the whole thing. But goddess isn't about that. It's what's the living goddess? You know, that word now is more of an embodied quality that we as women have just lost touch with. That's all it is. And so partly it's me and you and all of us here to help other people, and women specifically. For me, I primarily work with women, although I believe that if a woman does it, her man will get it.
Yes, and we are helping the divine masculine rise. And so we do have priests in our Priestess Path program. If they are choosing to embody their priesthood, it requires the lingam to activate the yoni. There is an activation that has to happen, and it's internal, but it's also external. When it's embodied within, it can be mirrored without. And there are men now that are rising up to meet that vibration.
There are definitely men, and I have always known this. I'll tell you, I have never been a skeptic about men in general. I used to heal and work with men. I had a practice back in the 90s. I was living in Marin County, which is in, you know, California, Marin, Northern California, and I had a practice where I actually taught men the art of divine love, the art of divine touch. And I had a surrogate priestess woman who was my priestess sister, who would be on the table. I did 3 sessions, and I taught men how to touch women, how to honor the goddess, how to be that presence. And you know what I learned about men that was really great for me? That most of the men I always worked with loved their women so much that they wanted to please them. They wanted them to feel loved. They wanted them to feel cherished. This is true. And it really made a difference for me to have that awareness and to have the experience, because, you know, we often give men a bad rap. But the truth is, I believe in the majority of men, they just want to really love and support the women that they're with. They want them to be happy. They want them to be pleasured. They want them to have multiple orgasms forever. You know, they want them to be joyfully goddesses. But I think women have to get it first.
They do have to embody that, because if they're not embodying it, there's no way that they can be mirrored through their partner.
Exactly.
Whether it's a woman, whether it's their own personal tantric practice, you have to embody it. And that's just really where my practice came in. Just to give you a little quick background is that, and for those of you that haven't heard my whole story, I will not share all that today, but my story began with myself learning, of course, being a yogi, being a yogini, taking all those teachings from the very masculinated, you know, very rote, very structured, you know, Krishnamacharya. Then he taught Iyengar, and Iyengar was very, very straightforward and, you know, very militant. And, you know, then Desikachar and all of the old yogis were men. And when it came to Indra Devi, and she brought the teachings to the god of the goddess, or the woman's body, when I was starting to download these teachings, I would download them through the lens of the goddess, and I would rewrite these flows to be in a Shakti flow. And I started to embody this, and I taught this, and I did huge teachings and festivals and things like that for many years in Dallas. And then I really started to feel like I needed to do some deeper work for myself. I was working on the counterbalance with the plant nation and the plant teachers in ceremony. And then I was teaching publicly, and I had a studio. And so I was bringing both of these lenses of the shamanic and the yogi. And then I began to really bring in the ability to find that union within myself. And several really important books came in to teach me the Tantra within the tantric union of my own. And I was moving through that. My husband was not really participatory in these teachings and in this learning. And so I was doing this teaching and learning on my own and exploring my own body, exploring my own connection to source energy through the orgasm, through the connection to the sacred flame within our heart, through the connection of the yoni and all the gateways of the yoni. But I was at a standstill. I didn't have a partner to practice with. And so I was at a standstill. I wanted a partner to practice with. And so I just put the teachings on the table, kind of tucked them away. And I just didn't practice for about 3 years. And this was 2017. And then 2020 came around, and I started to get called to bring this back into play because I went to go sit with ayahuasca, the grandmother, and she told me to pick that book up and bring it. And I said, yes, ma'am, because when ayahuasca tells you to do something, you say, yes, ma'am. And so I did. And I said, okay, I'm bringing this book. I'm going to study this weekend. I'm going to sit with the grandmother. And it was over my mother's birthday. She had passed 12 years previous, and I sat on her birthday. And that I was sitting with ceremony several times that year, and I began to really embody the practices a little deeper. And then I tabled it again. And then I found it again in January of 2021, when my twin flame was revealed to me through the bathwater, through sitting in sacred ceremony, in my priestess practice. It was revealed through an orgasm. And I saw her face. She was my ceremony partner. I didn't know what to do with it. She came to me as my divine union and my outer reflection of my masculine counterpart. And I thought, okay, well, this is just a teaching. I'll talk to her about this, and we'll write down some teachings, and we'll share this with and that was not exactly what happened at all. It became completely overwhelming. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know what was happening. The downloads were coming so fast, and every time through an orgasm. And every time she was remote from me, she was having a simultaneous orgasm.
Wow.
And she was also getting downloads of the exact same things, different lifetimes, different embodiments, every time we were in sacred union. And so we formed a church called Temple of the Sacred Heart and started teaching the teachings that were brought to us. And she was channeling through Ra, and I was channeling through Isis. And we've continued to deepen that relationship with those archetypal energies. And that's been 5 years that it's been coming in this lifetime. But the downloads of information go back so many, many, many lifetimes. And so it's just been a whirlwind of information, but all of this is so validating for the path, because we know that this has been the path for 30,000 years or more. The goddess is in every single dig, what is it called? The digs where they do
archaeological
digs. They always find symbols of the goddess, and she looks similar no matter what continent you are on, that they found these relics.
You're right. It's 30,000 plus years. The symbol of the yoni were on walls everywhere. Many years ago, a very wonderful woman who, Z Budapest, who is a very famous Wicca, the very first witch that ever came out and taught Wicca. She studied this and did a presentation a long time ago and gave a whole slide thing on the 30,000+ years of the yoni.
Wow.
Oh, I learned so many things from so many other wonderful women teachers about the sacred prostitution. One woman who was she was a prostitute or call girl in her own. Her name was Cozy Fabian. This was many years ago in the 90s. She was Lilith. She took the name Lilith.
Wow.
To work. And she said, boy, don't ever take the name of a goddess because you're going to go through it. And she set up a temple in her home to do sacred sexuality with the men that would come through. And then she began to teach the teachings of the true teachings of the sacred whore. And that's how I learned the words of what they meant and what was really happening behind it. And the word prostitute and prostituere was Latin, the Latin derivatives of what they really meant. And so I'm just going to say that because, you know, we're going into this place, your visions, what you've experienced and what you've brought through. And all of this is a revelation that is now like the lost information, the 30,000 years of yoni being, you know, ignored, and then the male archaeology who poo-pooed all the images of the goddesses. And it wasn't until Maria Gimbutas, as you know, that she was the one who was the female archaeologist who said, you guys are all screwed. These figurines are goddess figurines.
Goddesses.
They're not just fertility, they're actually goddesses. So, you know, the fact that that was a discovery back in, she did her work in the 70s and 80s. And those books that she did revolutionized. That's how the goddess came out. You know, it's like we're going into, here's how I've always seen different phases of different times. Like we're going through a completion of many different cycles, not just the 25,000 year cycle here, leaving the old age, right? Going to Kali Yuga ended. Or at the end, the tail, and we're into the new age or the new Aquarian age. But there are also cycles on other planets, cosmological cycles, timeline on many different levels, over 5, all at the same time happening now. So we are at this that's why the galactics are opening. That's why all of this stuff is happening because of that. It's not just arbitrary. It's not the same. It's not the same as other times where there was a reset of the earth. No more reset from the old way. You know, the flood isn't going to happen. Fires aren't going to devastate us. Yeah, we're seeing things happen on the earth, but those are going to be depending on the timeline you go.
Exactly.
Right? So I invite, well, you know, the word timeline again means, you know, quantum physics, timelines exist, multiple dimensions. We always have many choices. Any door you open is a timeline, right?
Absolutely. You know, it has an infinite possibility. Everything has that infinite possibility, which must be played out in some form or fashion. But we don't have to ride that wave.
And wherever you put your attention, so this portal, when we were beginning this whole conversation, this portal that you were mentioning, the beginning of the fire horse and the end of the new Chinese New Year,
February 17th and then January 18th, 2026. Right.
We are now in this portal now, which is a portal which is activated with wherever you, more than ever, wherever you put your attention is the timeline you're going to be on. And it's going to go in, there are 3 that are actually happening, 2 that are formed. The third is the middle one, which is still going to be like a 4th dimensional place. But my knowledge from what I've heard and listened to over the last several years and trust to be accurate, you know, is the 3rd dimensional sort of dystopian, sort of transhumanist, sort of what's going on in a lot of levels. Then there's the 5th dimension, going into more of the higher end of our high heart, unity consciousness, building a world that really is a new earth from the Eden. Like Terra is being recreated. We're reclaiming Terra Earth. And then there's a middle timeline that will come out for those people who are somewhat awake, but not totally, but their heart's in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the majority of people here, their hearts are good. You know, they're not dark evil. Their hearts are good. So they just
haven't remembered yet.
But they haven't quite remembered, or they still have questions. They're still not sure. There are a lot of new young souls. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of Earth Terrans that are not galactic, but they're Earth Terrans that are still part of that stream. But it means that we get to those of us in a fifth dimensional world is all going to look this. I mean, we're all going to be here on Earth.
Right. It's all very similar overlays.
But the vibration is going to be different. Fifth dimensional vibration, you know, they're not going to see us. We can see them.
It's already starting to happen. Have you noticed that?
I already
walk down a street and have a conversation about something high frequency, and only the ones that are awake will like turn and look at you, or the ones that are residing on that frequency, and then the others will walk by like you're not even there.
That you're not even there. And I noticed for me, like signs of some of this, for some people who are listening, you may resonate with all of this, is for me, it's like, I never know what day it is. I can barely remember that I'm in. I have to check and go on a calendar and go, oh, right, it's Tuesday. Oh, okay. They just all merge together.
Yeah, time is so wonky.
It's so, time is so fluid. It's just fluid.
It's so malleable. And this is Kali. This is Kali Ma at her. She's now outside of her shadow. She's now in her highest form for us. We are able to work with her as time immortal. We are able to work with her energy. We had to go through the chaos and the destruction and the fire of this last yuga, which was a 2,000-year period. You know,
Lupa yuga.
It was what?
a real, yes, it was a real intense yuga for 25,000 years. I'm so glad we're at the end of that.
Yes.
You know,
finally, but now we can still work with Kali on her highest level, because Kali is the creatrix of time itself. You know, she is the aspect of Shakti that has formed through the third eye of Durga. She is the aspect of Shakti that is here as birth and life and death.
And she's a creatress and she's the destroyer. She's both. She eats her children. If you don't wake up, she eats you. She does it in a good way, right? You know, because she's trying to wake you up, right? So she will invert and eat and become the dark goddess and destroy, because she doesn't want to see the lie. It's like she breaks through the distortion of the field and says, wake up, right? Wake up. You know, and this is such a good thing. This part of the feminine, the fierce, I like to call it like Durga, the fierce feminine. You know, that fierce energy within our hearts. You know, the story you may know, and I may not say it accurately, but many years ago it came up again, that Durga, the story of Durga and how she saved the world. And that's what we're doing right now. It's the feminine saving the world, the reclaiming and the reconnection to the divine, reconnecting to the divine feminine from its purity, from its intended heart, from all of that which was taken, reclaiming that all, because it was never lost. We forgot. We just forgot. We were in a sleep. We were in this haze. It was a dream that was a false dream. A false dream, the true dream. So Durga, I remember the story is that all the gods are called upon because all the demons, which we've been facing, are throttling and they're wiping out all the armies, and none of the gods can be saved. And they send their armies in, and the demons are killing them all. And they go, what are we going to do? The world is diminished. The world is being destroyed. Go to Durga. They all go to Durga. They, Durga, save us, save us, save us. And Durga says, of course I'll save you. And she comes and she takes Kali, her head woman, you know, the head goddess with all the heads and hands. And she says, Kali, go forward and I will go forward. And they slay all the demons.
Well, and how Kali came through, if you remember, is that Durga was slaying, and every time she would slay and a drop of blood would land from these demons, 10,000 more would spawn.
Yes.
And they were spawning, and she was killing and slaying, and they were spawning, and thousands of more. And so out of her fierceness, out of her intention of just completely destroying the darkness, Kali burst forth from her third eye to slay the demons. Chopping heads, and and together they prevailed.
They prevailed and saved the world. Period. So not that we have to necessarily be on that wavelength of Kali, but that's the archetypal energy we're talking about. And that is the literal energy of these gods and goddesses, because they really did literally live. And they really literally did these things. They were myths to us, but they really aren't myths. That was the story we were told.
Right. This is creation. This is the story of creation where, yes, it could be portrayed as a myth. They could be called idols. But they are very much embodied energies that we can absolutely connect to in our own reality.
Right.
In this life. It's very, we can call upon them at any moment. At any moment, we can call upon these energies, and they are right here. They're right here.
And you can, and each of us, you know, we're at a choice point once again. This is the time, and I know that I invite, and I know that you will invite too, everyone who's participating and watching this to just, if what would we like to say is like, you know, this is the choice point. We each have within us the opportunity to choose from our heart, to connect to the heart, to choose with wisdom from the heart first. Remember, as we've been learning over the last number of years, that our heart has over 40-something thousand cells, you know, in it, brain cells in it. Our heart is our first brain. Our gut is our second. You know, I'm on the human design, I'm a generator.
Yes.
So I live through the gut. It's all through the gut, and you manifest and create through inspiration. I have to be inspired to move forward, or I get depleted really, really fast. So feel your gut, feel your heart, and make decisions based on these areas, and then let this make the plan. You know, this is good for planning. It's great for planning, but don't make your decisions based on this.
Exactly true. Exactly.
Yes, the decisions of our heart and our gut, and tune in. All we have to do is take a moment to be still. I studied with Gangaji a long time ago, and Gangaji was one of my major teachers, and a non-dual teacher. But one of the first things I ever learned with her that I thought was great, you know, with Papaji's teaching that lineage of Ramana, was to just stop everything. Stop and be still for 1 second.
Yes.
And just be quiet and listen. Take a breath, you know.
Guide us through a closure, just getting into that stillness.
Yes.
Beautiful. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We just take a chance, an opportunity now to just close our eyes for 1 moment. Take a breath and let it out. Let go of everything. Just let your day go. Let this talk go. Relax. Let go of the universe, of everything you think you have to do. Everything that you feel you're in charge of. Just let it all go. And feel that empty presence. Just quiet. Put your focus on inside, on your heart, on your energy heart, your right in the center of your chest. And be still. And listen to that heart. And listen. There's nothing to be, nothing to get, nothing to do. Just be the presence of yourself. You are enough. And you are so loved. Today is what I love to call the day of divine love. I call it to all the beloveds here. You are my beloved. Know that you are loved. Know that you are cherished. Know that you are filled with love and light and goodness, and that you are on the precipice of a great awakening. And we are with you. And call upon us, call upon the high self within yourself. Know that we have never left. We are the changeless. We are here forever. That you are protected and guided always. That was just the beloved. You feel you're ready to just open your eyes.
Yes, thank you for bringing them through. timeless and changeless and always here for us.
It's that still quiet presence within ourselves. You know, we've heard that still voice. It's still there. Even amongst the chaos, we are still. We are the, you know, we anchor ourselves into the earth, right?
Yeah.
The earth star chakra.
That is how we bring the teachings in. You have to embody it and anchor it down. And this is, if you followed me for any moment, I'll teach that. They're anchoring into the earth star chakra. You have to bring it in. And this, we have to connect every day. So thank you, Luminessa.
Yes, thank you so much. The soul star, the earth star. Portal, right? Up and down.
We are simply that.
And we're that plumb line. And if everyone wants to just find that plumb line, find that 12 o'clock inside yourself, you will always feel connected and grounded. If you start to feel you're going all the way out and getting kind of crazy, don't focus on what's going on outside. Focus on what's going on inside.
Yes,
bring it home. Through this. We're together, and you have a teacher right here. And I'm always just welcome to anything I can do to be of service.
Yes. Oh, thank you. It's so good to be aligned with you in this life and to know that you've been paving the way as a first wave generation to come and trailblaze. Just you had the machetes and you were cutting the path so I could walk through. And as a second wave, a Gen X, I was born in the 70s. And, you know, I've come through before many of you on that are watching this as well. But we're coming through in waves, as Dolores Cannon predicted many, many, many years ago. And here we are arriving at this very moment. We don't know what's going to happen next. We're in uncharted territory, but we are here for our highest good and our highest timeline. And just as Luminessa had really, really brought home today, it's all about your intention and what you focus on, because these timelines are becoming very discombobulated, and you're going to have to choose. You're going to have to choose which wave you're going to ride. And are you going to get sucked down and hit the reef and cut your knee and, you know, crash your head and go under? Or are you going to ride that and surf that wave and learn how to rise above? And this is what we're teaching. All these teachings are simply for this moment.
Exactly. We're right here in the perfect right time. And we're so grateful to be alive at this particular time in the history of the universe. Wow, what a time.
The fact that we're incarnated in this body, in this moment, and that we're here together, we're here catching you, whether you catch this as a replay or whether you are catching this in the future. This is for you. This is if you found this frequency, then it's for you. And that's so, right. Luminessa, you have a really wonderful gift for our audience today. So would you like to share what that gift is?
So because we've talked about sacred sexuality and the goddess archetypes, I have a gift, actually two. It's called What's Your Sexy Quiz, or Discovering the Goddess of Love Archetypes. Which goddess are you? And you go to my website and you sign up and you just get immediately a beautiful gift that is the quiz. You can take an email, you click the button, you get the quiz, and you get a guide. Also, on the same thing, you click the guide and the whole guide will explain to you the different archetypes. So you can pick what archetype you resonate with and understand who she is. And now that's just the free gift that you get. And then I have different depth levels of that living goddess archetype and these archetypes. I have a course called What's Your Sexy? Discovering Your New Erotic Self. It's called, it is all about understanding how to use this in your life. So you get the and go from there.
So what's your website?
It's newfemininerising.com.
Okay, simple enough. newfemininerising.com. Grab your What's Your Sexy quiz. And if it really resonates with you, sign up for the courses and study with Luminessa. I definitely feel like you're one of my teachers. I just want to cry because I'm so happy to have found you. And I feel this work alone. It's so hard.
I know, and I just felt so blessed. I felt, oh, this is cosmic. We were brought together. There's no accident here. I mean, this woman is like a mirror image of everything I know is to be true. You validated it even more with Lilith. You're the first woman I've ever talked to who sees Lilith this way. So thank you so
much. And one of my great teachers introduced me to Lilith, so I want to honor her, Sierra Bender. and she wrote Goddess to the Core, and that book changed my life, woke me up. I downloaded that book. It was a pretty thick book, and I read it in one night, and I worked with her. And so I worked with her for 10 years. She's a dear friend of mine now, but she was the first one that taught me about Lilith. So I'm going to honor the source where I learned from her first. And so, yes, look up the Goddess to the Core and the teachings there as well. And so I do have a gift as well. It is my Dream Life Guidebook. And so for those of you that are really figuring this out and embodying everything, this is a free guidebook for you. And it's available at my website, AiylahValkyrie.com. I'm also going to put the direct link below in the comments. When we put the YouTube description in, you'll find all of this information, and you can connect with us there. So thank you so much, Luminessa. Do you have anything else to wrap up? I have a little tear coming in. Gratitude.
Share with anybody who wants. I've started a new platform on school. It's called the New Feminine Rising Sisterhood. And right now, I still have a free membership for a short more time. And if you want to, you can see it on my website. At the bottom of the page is the link. And if you want to join for free, for now, it's a founding circle of women. It's a sacred, we're creating sacred community, temple community. We get to talk about things like what we've talked about today, get to really have a sacred space and learn how to be in a circle, a sacred circle with women. And if you've never experienced that, whether it be online or in person, the power of women in circle is tremendous. When you align with women as your sisters, there is nothing that you cannot do.
Absolutely. So, we're meant to be in village. We're meant to be in tribe. So
yes,
we'll drop that link as well. You can visit her on her website. And we're just so very, very grateful for this conversation today. Thank you, Luminessa, for being a guest on Path to New Earth, Freedom Dream Life. You're truly living the life that we are rising to, and you're such a calibration to how to continue to hold that frequency. So thank you so much for bringing in your teachings and bringing in and saying yes to the channelings and bringing this information through.
Yes, it's been a very 40 to 50 years. I've been holding this vision for over 50 years.
Oh, thank you.
Manifest.
I can't imagine how it is.
Yes, thank you for having me as a guest. It's been my delight.
Such an honor. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the little bell for getting all the juicy notifications on YouTube as well. And if this helped you in any way, please share this video with another sister. Namaste.
Namaste.